Hi, I'm Jim DeCola, Master Luthier for Gibson Guitars. Today, I'm going to show you the first thing you need to know about maintaining your guitar, and that's changing your guitar strings. Having fresh guitar strings is very important for many reasons. For one, fresh guitar strings will just feel better and play better. Two, you'll have better intonation and tuning stability. As your strings get older, they'll have very slight microscopic wear marks as they wear away on top of the fret, and even little bends on top of the fret. So you'll have better tuning stability. Three, you'll have a better tone because fresh strings will have enhanced high end and more harmonics and just sound better. So it's always the first and foremost thing to maintain that your guitar is playing and sounding the best it possibly can. When you change your strings, you may have a case of just a broken string and you may only need to replace that one string, or you may need to replace the whole set. If it's only one string, the strings are relatively new, that's very, very simple. If the strings are old and you need to replace the whole set, there's a few different ways you can change the strings. Some people like to change the string one at a time. That way you keep tension on your guitar so your bridge doesn't move and possibly upset your action, so your playability remains intact. Another method may involve replacing all your strings at one time. And that's preferred if you're going to give your guitar a deep cleaning or possibly oil and condition your fingerboard. At that point, then it's a good idea to remove all the strings and do the work that's needed before you put your new strings on. So to get started changing your strings, I'd first like to share a few tips. First, when you're unpackaging your string, they're coiled up. And it may sound simple, but you need to be careful because the strings have a lot of tension and they're kind of springy. So as you uncoil your strings, kind of hold them away from your eyes so you don't get accidentally hit by the string as it's uncoiled. Second, when it comes to the plain strings, especially your high E and B string, this is a very important tip. Sometimes, when strings are like this, we do have color-coded ball ends to let you know what your high E and B strings are and so forth. Some brands don't. So if you get to a point where you're confused and you don't know which string is which, on your high E and B especially, hold them about 6 to 8 inches away from the ball end and just let them drop. And you'll notice that one string will drop farther than the other string. In this case, this silver ball end string is lower than the brass ball end string. So that means this is your high E because it's a thinner piece of steel, so it can't support the ball end as much as the B string. So now we know that's the high E string. That simple but helpful tool. And next, when you're changing your strings, when they're already under tension, I recommend loosening them. Some people will clip them under full tension. And again, that could be dangerous and the string could come loose and hit you in the eye. And sometimes that ball end of the string can, hit the surface of the body and cause a ding or a scratch. Also, I recommend putting a polishing cloth behind your tailpiece. So as you thread your string through the tailpiece, you're not going to scratch the top surface of the body. And when you restring it, the ball end will not accidentally bounce off of the surface of the body. So loosen the strings. And then you can clip them, which makes it a little bit more manageable than trying to uncoil them and then thread them all through. So right now I'm unloosening and removing the wound strings. And I'll carefully push those through the tailpiece. And then remove them from the tuner. And at this point, here's another tip. Some people, if you don't plan on giving your guitar a deep clean, you can do one string at a time, or you can do them in halves like that. You can do, say, your wound string, replace those strings, and then go to your plain strings and replace those. That way you have string tension holding that bridge into place so your bridge isn't going to move and possibly misadjust your action. In this case, we'll go ahead and remove all the strings. And now with no string tension, we could actually remove that tailpiece, and that bridge now is sitting on the thumb wheels. Another tip, you can take low tack masking tape like blue painter's tape and put that over the thumb wheels and the bridge to hold that in place if you do want to, give your guitar light polishing or so forth. Now, we're going to string the tailpiece, and this is the method I prefer. If I'm restringing all the strings at one time, I just go ahead and take that tailpiece out, and then I'll get the strings and thread them into the tailpiece before I put them on the guitar. And that's how we actually do it in manufacturing here. And I'll tell you why. If you string your tailpiece first with all your strings, you'll have less chance of damaging your guitar as opposed to just threading them in one by one. Now we have all the strings in the tailpiece. I'll put the polishing rag there just to play it safe and put that into position. Now, I'll take the low E string and put the other strings off to the side, and I'm going to tie that low E string into place. Once I do, then that low E string will hold that tailpiece securely and that bridge in place, and then we can string the rest of the strings. So now, there's a few different methods of stringing your guitar and tying it down at the headstock. Some people like to clip the string a few inches past the post that they're going to wrap it on. They'll clip it about 2 tuners or so from the tuning post that they're going to wind. And I recommend turning the tuning post so that the holes are going perpendicular with center line. It's just easier and cleaner to tie your strings that way. Insert the string in the tuning post, leave a little bit, about 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch extend out of the tuner, put a little bend on it, and then start tightening the tuner, putting pressure on that string downward, so as the string is wrapped around that post, all the successive wraps will be below the previous wrap. That's very, very important. If not, if your wraps are wrapped on top of each other, it's going to be, for one, unsightly and messy, and most importantly, it's going to be very, very unstable in terms of tuning, because that string can now slip and slide on top of those wraps. If everything is neatly wrapped, leaving from the bottom, all that tension is going to hold it tight together, and you'll have a lot better tuning stability. So now we have that low E tied in that method. Now we'll take that A and I'll show you another method. This is very similar, where we'll feed the string through instead of clipping it shy. And once it's through that tuning post, I'm going to hold it about 1.5 inches above that tuning post. And then I'm going to put a Z bend on it. So I'm going to take the end of the string and bend it towards the headstock while I bend the rest of the string in the opposite direction, so it creates a Z bend around that tuning post. And that's very secure because you have 2 bends. And again, you wrap that string tight, making sure that all the wraps are below the previous wrap in orderly fashion. Okay? And at that point, then you can go ahead and clip your string once it's tight. That way it's not messy and it's not going to tangle in with the rest of your strings as you wind them. Now the third method is similar to that last Z method, except we're going to lock it. So we're going to kind of, in a way, tie a knot on it in a way. So we'll put it through that tuning post, and again, leave about 1.5 inches of slack above that post. Do the Z bend. So you're bending that end of the string clockwise towards the top of the headstock. But what's different is now we're going to bring that string under the remainder of the string. So now it's pulling against it. And then we're going to hold this down and pull that string over the top. So now it's locked on. So that's the most secure method right there. Then, just like the previous methods, hold that string down and neatly wrap that string around the post. Okay, so now there's another string changing method we need to discuss, and that's locking tuners. These are conventional tuners. Locking tuners have a little lock on the back, and I'll show you those now. These are locking tuners. As you can see, there's a knurled thumb screw on the back of that tuner, so a pin goes through that tuning post and holds that string securely. So to remove the string, you loosen it, and then you turn that thumb screw counterclockwise, just a few turns, just to loosen it. And then you can pull that string out of the tuning post and then remove it from the guitar. Now when we go to restring it, we'll thread it through the tailpiece in the same manner, but then we'll pull it through the tuner with no slack at all. And that's the theory with locking tuner, is that because it locks, you pull it through, you lock it, and that way you don't have any potential slack that can cause tuning issues. And I still like to put a bend at the end and then tighten that just snug, hand tight is sufficient. And then you can go ahead and clip off the excess. And at that point, you just tune it as normal. Once all the strings are installed, you can gently stretch the strings to ensure that the material stretches out and you have better tuning. So when you stretch the string, you'll want to pinch it between your thumb and your first finger. You'll want to kind of hold it like that. You don't want to put it in your finger and slide it like that because you risk cutting your finger. If you hold it like this, then it can slide out if you have too much tension and you're not going to get hurt. So do that one at a time throughout the length of the string and kind of tug it in the center. And then we can start tuning it up. Here I'm using one of the Snark clip-on tuners. They're very popular and very handy these days. So I'm holding it in the playing position. And when you tune with a new set of strings, you'll probably have to go through them a few times because as they settle, the string pitch will change and the tension on the neck will change. So you generally go through it 2 or 3 times. If it's above pitch, then you want to loosen the tuner and then pull that slack so you don't have any slack on that tuning post. With fresh strings installed on your guitar, you'll find it not only plays and feels better, but it will stay in tune better and just sound better. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the next episode of Gibson's Guide to Guitar Setup and Maintenance.